Welcome to my advanced Tinkercad modeling instructional series. In this episode, we're going to create radiating geometry perfectly each time. I am going to jump right into this tutorial. This is creating radiating geometry. I've seen some great tutorials on Tinkercad on YouTube, but people are placing, sometimes they'll place objects manually. So what they'll do is they'll start with a single object. They'll Control C and Control V and duplicate it, and then they'll duplicate it again and move it, and then they'll Control C, and they'll just keep placing objects manually into a circle or in a line. I'm going to show you something that I do to make perfectly radiating shape. So let's go ahead and start with a circle, and let's imagine that I want to place rivets. So we'll just go ahead and bring a sphere out, shrink it down. Okay, let's say that I want these rivets, and just for kicks, let's just make it a little bit smaller, so it'd be a little bit harder to do. Now I want to get these all the way around the circle. Well, I can sit here and do it manually. It will take a while, and you've got to go in and adjust. Let me show you a really quick way of radiating this. So I'm going to select both these objects. I'm going to come over here to the Align feature, and I want to get this rivet perfectly centered. And that's using this middle key right here. So I know this is perfectly centered onto that circle. So now what I'm going to do is duplicate that rivet, and I'm going to use my arrow key to drag it to the opposite side, and I can roughly gauge how far that is away. That's looking pretty good to me. If I was really being anal, like, you can bring in a measuring tool. There's also a measuring tool in Tinkercad, but you can come in here and say, okay, this is, oops, let's go ahead and make it that far away from the edge. And I could just use this guy here. Okay, it's that far from the edge. I can bring this over here, line it up on that edge. I can see this needs to be moved over just a touch. That's perfect. Alright, so now I know that these two circles are the same distance from the edge, and they're perfectly aligned. What I'm going to do is Control D, and let's rotate this. The duplicates are going to be a different color, so we'll make them green. And let's rotate them 30 degrees. That's going to make a lot of rivets. Well, we'll do even more here in a minute, but that's a 30 degrees. So before I touch any models, before I do anything, Control D, again, duplicates that rotation. And since I put in 30, that's going to give me a dozen rivets. And they're perfectly symmetrical. Those are perfectly inside this circle. Let's say we wanted to make twice as many rivets on this circle. Let's make sure these are singular. So I'm going to grab these two, duplicate them. I'm going to come over to rotation, and we're going to say 15. Before I do anything else, I'm hitting Control D. Again, just keep going all the way around, and that is perfectly placed. That is just a super fast way of getting perfect duplications on a circular object. I can do it also on any kind of a shape. Let's say that we have this bar And let's say we wanted to put raised panel details. So we're going to make a panel here. And just for fun, let's go ahead and duplicate this panel, shrink it, and bring it on top of itself. And see, we can keep doing that again over and over. It repeats your last move. So let's select that object. We're going to group it. So that is one piece now. And let's say we wanted to bring this all the way down the bar. I'm going to select this object, Control D, arrow key, and let's make it that far apart. Control D. You guys feel me? I mean, like, it's just a really fast way to duplicate perfectly. And you can also create procedural detailing. Let me show you what I mean. Let's bring this up here. Alright, let's say that we want to create, let's make this hole a little bit less. A little less than that. Okay, let's say that we want to bring in lines across this, like spokes on a wheel. I'm going to grab a bar here out of a box. I'm going to stick this in here. Now, just like we did with that rivet sample, we're going to select both objects. We're going to come over here to the Align tool. We're going to make sure that bar is perfectly aligned into this circle. And then that same technique. We grab the bar, we duplicate it, we come over to its rotation, and we'll make a whole bunch of them. We'll do a 30-degree rotation, and then Control D all the way across. And since that was divisible, that 30 is divisible by 360, they're perfectly placed. All right, and then you can bring in another circle here. And before we do that, one of my tricks is to select the bars. So I'm going to select that whole object, deselect the wheel, group the bars, and then I can put this wheel anywhere here. I mean, this center hub anywhere. And I just use my Align tool, one of the most important tools in your toolbox in Tinkercad. Like, no matter where this is, anywhere on your work plane, as long as it's selected, you hit Align. We're going to align by clicking onto that wheel. We're going to center it, and then center it again. And the same technique can be used to create all kinds of interesting details. So let's bring a plane out. I'm going to stretch this out. I'm going to grab, gosh, what am I going to do here? Okay, I think I know what I'll do. I'm going to grab this plane. I'm going to grab just this. And I'm going to drop it onto my plane. I'm going to align everything on X and Y. And let's make this really tall. And let's say that we want to do something interesting here. We're going to duplicate this. Whatever we do, as long as we don't touch any other models, it will repeat procedurally. So I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to shrink it. And if I just Control D, each time it's repeating any kind of a scale, a movement, or a rotation. Really cool trick. I am so glad to bring this information to you. I've got tutorials on reducing facets, creating custom curves, all kinds of advanced SVG vector imports into Tinkercad. So make sure that you check out my 10-part tutorial series. If you find these tutorials helpful, consider hitting the like and subscribe button and hit the bell icon to be notified when future content goes live. Thanks for watching.